Priyanka was always in touch with Chandana, and they met up regularly. Eventually, they started seeing each other secretly without Shanti knowing. Priyanka would visit Chandana's boarding house almost every day. By the time Chandana came home from college, Priyanka was usually already there. She even had a spare key, so she could come and go whenever she wanted. Often, she'd stay over and only head home around midnight. What made Priyanka special to Chandana was that she could give him something he never received from his girlfriend, Shanti. Hello and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into another chilling true story from around the world. This time, our tale comes from Anuradhapura, a historic city in Sri Lanka's north-central province. With a population of about 60,000, Anuradhapura is one of Sri Lanka's oldest and most culturally rich cities. In this city, there's a young couple whose marriage is off to a rocky start. Instead of happiness, they're facing one problem after another with no end in sight. Could this be karma catching up because he stole his best friend's lover? What's the full story behind this case? Let's explore it in more detail. Before we dive into the story, let me remind you to like, comment, subscribe, and share this story with your friends. Spread the love as far as you can. Now, let's get started. There was a girl named Priyanka, born in 1997 in the city of Epawala. When her second sister was born in 2001, the family moved to Anuradhapura, Sri Lanka. Priyanka was a cheerful but spoiled girl. She was very sensitive, and whenever she wanted something, she'd whine endlessly, often leaving her parents feeling exasperated. She had a soft heart and was easily hurt, especially by her mother, Padmini. Priyanka's father, Jay Singh, was a hard-working rice farmer. He worked so far from home that he rarely came back, maybe only twice a month. Padmini, who used to work alongside her husband as a day laborer, later started taking in laundry jobs to make ends meet. Most of her clients were neighbors living near their rented house or people from nearby housing complexes. Fast forward to high school, Priyanka ended up in the same class as a young man named Chandana. Chandana was already dating someone, Shanti, one of Priyanka's friends, though she was in a different class. Chandana and Shanti had been together since the start of high school. Chandana was quite popular because he came from a wealthy family, and their relationship stayed strong all the way through graduation. After finishing high school, Chandana went to college, as his parents insisted. He also started helping his parents with their successful clothing business, which had grown to include 4 stores across different shopping malls. Shanti, meanwhile, pursued her studies at a different campus. She was fiercely independent, having lost both her parents. She lived alone in the house they left behind. Shanti had a brother, but after getting married, he moved with his wife to the small town of Tambatagama. Despite the distance and their busy lives, Chandana and Shanti's relationship thrived. They supported each other and stayed focused on graduating on time. Chandana had even promised to marry Shanti as soon as they finished college. However, balancing work and studies left Shanti with little time to meet Chandana, and that began to test their relationship. Let's dive back into the story, focusing on our main character, Priyanka. Back in school, Priyanka had always liked Chandana. She was well aware that his relationship with Shanti was starting to feel strained because they rarely saw each other. Taking advantage of this, Priyanka began reaching out to Chandana, and to her delight, he responded positively. Over time, they grew closer. Chandana opened up to her about his hectic college life and even shared how his relationship with Shanti was losing its spark. Not only were they meeting less often, but Shanti rarely called or texted. It was always Chandana who had to initiate contact, and even then, her responses were slow, likely because she was juggling work and studies. Priyanka, on the other hand, wasn't studying or working due to her family's financial struggles. She spent her days at home scrolling on her phone or lying around. With plenty of free time, she frequently contacted Chandana, and soon, they began meeting regularly. Eventually, their connection grew deeper, and they started dating. Secretly, of course, without Shanti knowing. Priyanka became a regular visitor to Chandana's boarding room. She visited almost every day, And by the time Chandana came home from college, Priyanka was often already there, waiting. Chandana even gave her a spare key so she could come and go as she pleased. She would often stay until late at night before heading home. To Chandana, this made Priyanka special. She offered him the attention and companionship that he felt was missing in his relationship with Shanti. Meanwhile at home, Priyanka was facing increasing pressure from her parents. They frequently scolded her for not working, especially since most of her friends her age already had jobs. With their financial situation being tough, they urged her to find a job so she wouldn't be a burden to the family. Reluctantly, Priyanka reached out to her close friend, Shanti, for help finding work. Shanti, being kind-hearted, managed to secure a job for Priyanka through her connections. To this day, Shanti has no idea that her friend Priyanka has been secretly seeing her boyfriend, Chandana. After working together for about a year and a half at a cosmetic store, Priyanka and Shanti faced a tough situation. The store had to shut down permanently due to declining sales. Suddenly, both of them were left unemployed. For a month, they searched for jobs, and in July 2019, Shanti landed a position as a waitress at a fast food restaurant. Being the kind-hearted person she was, Shanti immediately recommended Priyanka for a job there. And luckily, Priyanka was hired too. Priyanka and her family were deeply grateful for Shanti's help, and this act of kindness brought Shanti even closer to them. She started spending a lot of time at Priyanka's house, sometimes even staying over. The neighbors got to know Shanti as well, and occasionally, Priyanka's parents were invited over to Shanti's home for meals. It seemed like everything was going well on the surface. But behind the scenes, things were far more complicated. Priyanka and Chandana, Shanti's boyfriend, were growing closer and closer. Then, out of nowhere, Priyanka dropped a bombshell. She announced that she was pregnant, carrying Chandana's child. The news sent shockwaves through their circle, leaving Shanti utterly heartbroken. She was devastated to learn that her boyfriend and best friend had betrayed her trust and carried on a secret relationship behind her back. Shanti was deeply hurt, but being the mature person she was, she chose to distance herself from both Priyanka and Chandana while maintaining professionalism at work. As for Chandana, things got even messier. His parents had a meeting to discuss the situation, and while they weren't thrilled about Priyanka, finding her immature, lazy, and overly focused on makeup, they ultimately agreed to the relationship because Priyanka was already pregnant. Despite their reservations, preparations for the wedding went ahead. For context, Chandana had completed 3 years of college, earning a diploma in business. The wedding was a simple affair held in February 2020. Chandana's parents had wanted to postpone the ceremony due to the pandemic, but the event proceeded anyway because Priyanka's pregnancy was becoming more noticeable, and delaying wasn't an option. After getting married, Priyanka moved into her in-laws' house with her husband, Chandana. Even after tying the knot, Priyanka continued working at the fast food restaurant with Shanti. However, now that she had married into a wealthy family, Priyanka started treating the job more like a hobby. She'd show up only when she felt like it, often skipping shifts without notifying anyone. Meanwhile, Chandana was busy managing his parents' clothing store. This behavior really annoyed Shanti, especially since Priyanka's actions started affecting her as well. Shanti had once been the one to help Priyanka get the job, but now, Priyanka's lack of professionalism was putting Shanti in hot water with their boss. When Priyanka skipped work, it was Shanti who got scolded. Things escalated when their boss issued Priyanka a final warning. If she skipped work one more time without notice, she'd be fired. Shanti, ever the responsible friend, went to Priyanka's house to deliver the warning. But Priyanka didn't take it seriously. Laughing, she said, "Oh, whatever. I don't care. I'm just working for fun. My in-laws are rich anyway." Shanti was furious. She couldn't believe the same girl who had begged her to help get the job was now acting so arrogant. Shanti told her that if she wanted to quit, she should do it properly, not just ditch work whenever she felt like it. Instead of being grateful, Priyanka lashed out and kicked Shanti out of her in-laws' house. On her way out, Chandana met Shanti at the terrace. He apologized for Priyanka's behavior and even for betraying Shanti's love in the past. He seemed genuinely regretful, but as he said, What's done is done. Chandana's mother also apologized and assured Shanti that Chandana would go to the restaurant the next day to formally resign on Priyanka's behalf. True to his word, Chandana went to the restaurant and informed the boss of Priyanka's resignation. But despite his efforts, Shanti's relationship with her boss had already soured, and she was laid off shortly after. Shanti ended up being unemployed for 3 months. In June 2020, Shanti finally found a new job as a cashier at a nightclub in Anuradhapura. Occasionally, she worked as an usher there too. It wasn't long before Chandana started frequenting the nightclub with his friends. The two bumped into each other a few times, and before they knew it, they were chatting again. As they grew more comfortable with each other, Chandana began opening up about his marriage. He confessed that things had become strained between him and Priyanka. Adding to the tension, Priyanka had suffered a miscarriage, leaving their relationship cold and distant. Chandana couldn't help but reminisce about his past connection with Shanti, and it seemed like old feelings were beginning to resurface. Chandana often vented about his wife, Priyanka, calling her spoiled and immature. He felt frustrated that she didn't seem to realize their living situation, still dependent on his parents for a home and work. Priyanka frequently clashed with her mother-in-law, who was annoyed by Priyanka's habit of spending her days doing nothing but eating, sleeping, and watching TV. Once a week, Priyanka would demand money for shopping and constantly whine about wanting a new house, claiming she hated living under the same roof as her in-laws. Chandana had even suggested they rent a place, but Priyanka wasn't having it. She wanted a house they could buy outright, in cash, and insisted that Chandana ask for his inheritance to make it happen. She felt embarrassed that everyone in the neighborhood thought her husband was a successful businessman, yet they still lived with his parents. Her demands and attitude pushed Chandana to his limit, and he finally snapped. He scolded her, calling her spoiled and lazy, pointing out that all she did was sit around playing with makeup. The tension boiled over after yet another fight with her mother-in-law and husband. Priyanka stormed out and went back to her parents' rented house, hoping Chandana would come after her, beg her to return, and apologize. But Chandana had other plans. Instead of chasing after her, he ignored the situation entirely and spent his evenings at the nightclub, reconnecting with Shanti in secret. When Priyanka realized her husband wasn't coming for her, she grew restless. Her parents, noticing her frustration, suggested that maybe she was the one causing problems in her marriage. Determined to find out what Chandana was up to, Priyanka asked her sister to follow him. After sending multiple unanswered messages to Chandana, Priyanka's sister eventually reported back that Chandana was frequently meeting Shanti at the nightclub. He even picked her up and dropped her off from work. Furious, Priyanka decided to confront Shanti. In the middle of the night, she barged into Shanti's house, yelling and causing a scene. Shanti, though feeling somewhat guilty, stayed silent and eventually kicked Priyanka and her sister out of her home. The next morning, Priyanka returned to Chandana's house and complained about his actions to her in-laws, but they ignored her. Things took a turn when Chandana himself told Priyanka he wanted a separation, saying he was tired of her behavior. Priyanka, refusing to accept this, went back to her parents' rented home, where she vented her frustrations to her family and neighbors. However, she exaggerated the situation, claiming her in-laws were abusive and had even been physically violent toward her. One of her friends, a 21-year-old named Gayan, was enraged upon hearing this. Late one night in May 2021, he went to Chandana's parents' clothing store in the market. Under the cover of darkness, he smashed the glass and damaged the iron door. But his plan backfired. His face was caught on the store's surveillance camera, and Chandana's mother reported him to the authorities. The next day, Gayan was arrested, adding yet another layer of chaos to the already messy situation. This entire incident made the neighbors and renters even angrier, especially after Priyanka started spreading rumors about Shanti. She claimed that Shanti had betrayed her, was the reason she got fired in the first place, and told other exaggerated stories that fueled the outrage. By July 2021, things had escalated to the point where about 10 people, including Priyanka's sister, gathered outside Shanti's house at 3 in the morning. Priyanka herself didn't join them, but the group came prepared. As soon as they arrived, They jumped out of their vehicles and started throwing Molotov cocktails onto Shanti's terrace, all while shouting angrily. Some men broke in through the windows, throwing stones and trashing the house. Shanti, who was inside, was hit by flying glass shards, leaving her injured. Her neighbors, alarmed by the commotion, quickly called the police. Shanti was rushed to the hospital, shaken but alive. The investigation revealed that Shanti had multiple injuries from the shattered glass and stones, though fortunately, none were life-threatening. She stayed in the hospital for 2 weeks to recover. Meanwhile, police gathered evidence, including surveillance footage from Shanti's home and nearby cameras, which helped identify the perpetrators. Initially, the 10 individuals involved tried to cover for each other, but as the investigation progressed and fear of harsher punishments grew, they started confessing one by one. It didn't take long for the police to discover that Priyanka was the mastermind behind the attack. Even though she wasn't physically there, it was clear she had incited the mob with her fabricated stories and fueled their anger. Investigators uncovered that many of her claims, like Shanti betraying her or being the cause of her firing, were outright lies. Priyanka had intentionally spread falsehoods to rally people to her side and get rid of Shanti. To make matters worse, just a week after the attack, Priyanka's mother-in-law filed a defamation report against her. She claimed that Priyanka's accusations of physical abuse were baseless and had damaged her reputation. At the trial, Priyanka's friend Gayan, who had vandalized Shanti's house earlier that year, testified that he had acted out of frustration, fed up with Priyanka's lies and manipulations. He was sentenced to 3 months in jail for his role in the earlier incident. Out of the 10 attackers, 5 were ultimately found guilty of vandalizing Shanti's home, with sentences ranging from 12 to 20 months in prison. Priyanka's sister received the harshest sentence, 2 years in jail. As for Priyanka, she was convicted of inciting the attack, attempting to harm Shanti, and spreading defamatory and false information. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Following the trial, Chandana officially filed for divorce, ending his turbulent marriage to Priyanka. Meanwhile, Shanti, still recovering from the trauma, was taken by her brother to Tambatagama for further care. Her late parents' house was sold, marking the end of her chapter in Anuradhapura. What lessons can we learn from this story?